Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
So we continue to read from the Srimad Bhagavatam from the 4th canto, chapter 3, entitled The Talks Between Lord Shiva and Sati, text number 16. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Tvayoditam Shubhanam Eva Shubhane Anahuta Abhiyanti Bandhushu Te Yadi Anupatita Dosha Drishtayo Paliyasanatnya Madena Manyuna Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Tvayoditam Shubhanameva Shobhane Tvayoditam Shubhanameva Shobhane Anahuta Apiyanti Bandhushu Anahuta Apiyanti Bandhushu Tiyatyanutpadita dosha trishtayo Tiyatyanutpadita dosha trishtayo Baliyasanatnyamadena manyuna Baliyasanatnyamadena manyuna Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Tvayoditam Shubhanameva Shobhane Anahuta Apiyanti Bandhushu Tiyatyanutpadita dosha trishtayo Baliyasanatnyamadena manyuna Thanks to you to try. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Tvayoditam Shobhanameva Shobhane Anahuta Apiyanti Bandhushu Tiyatyanutpadita dosha trishtayo Baliyasanatnyamadena manyuna
Shri Bhagavan
Uvacha
Tvayoditam Shobhanameva
Shobhane
Anahuta Apyayanti Bandhushu Tiyatyanutpadita dosha drishtayo Baliyasanatnyamadena manyuna Shri Bhagavan Uvacha The great Lord replied Tvaya by you Uditam said Shobhanam is true Eva certainly Shobhane my dear beautiful wife Anahuta without being invited Abhi even Abhiyanti go Bandhushu among friends Te those friends Yadi, if Anupatita dosha drishtaya, not finding fault, Balyasa, more important, Anapnya mandina, by pride, caused by identification with the body. Manyuna, by anger. Translation and purpose to English, Prabhupada. The great Lord replied, "My dear beautiful wife, you have said that one may go to a friend's house without being invited. And this is true, provided such a friend does not find fault with the guest because of bodily identification and thereby become angry towards him." Purport. Lord Shiva could foresee that as soon as Sati reached her father's house, her father Daksha, being too puffed up because of bodily identification, would be angry at her presence. And although she was innocent and faultless, he would be mercilessly angry towards her. Lord Shiva warned that since her father was too puffed up by his material possessions, he would be angry, and this would be intolerable for her. Therefore, it was better that she not go. This fact was already experienced by Lord Shiva because although Lord Shiva was faultless, Daksha had cursed him in so many harsh words. Om Jnanatimurandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshuram Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manovishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Dadati Svavadantikam Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. The verse again. The great Lord replied, "My dear beautiful wife, you have said that one may go to a friend's house without being invited. And this is true, provided such a friend does not find fault with the guest because of bodily identification, and thereby become angry towards him." So in this verse, there are like two main topics that I would like to address. One is, as some might notice, the verse or shloka is starting with Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, and we are used to that when Sri Bhagavan Uvacha speaks, that usually Sri Krishna himself speaks, or Lord Narayan. But here the term Bhagavan is related to Lord Shiva, and we will hear a bit about the glories and the tattva of Lord Shiva. Tattva means the essential identity. It's a very interesting topic, which is also elaborated in the Brahma Samhita. And another topic here in this verse is the pride and the anartha of pride and its effects on relationships, so to speak. Because we see particularly Daksha and Shiva. Daksha started to get into anger, and then this whole conflict started. And here Shiva is trying to protect his wife from further experience of, as Prabhupada says here, this mercilessly angry, that Daksha becomes mercilessly angry toward her, and that she suffers even more than she suffered already. So this also enters this whole topic of etiquette or social etiquette. And etiquette is practically a code or codes of behavior that should provide or guarantee that people can function in a particular society, that proper respect is given and being received, so that people feel also properly respected. So this we might also address. Starting with the term Bhagavan, we find that Sri Jiva Goswami in his Bhagavad Sandarbha, he gave a particular definition of this term, which is to be found in the Upanishad in the 16th mantra and the purport. And here Srila Prabhupada quotes, in his Bhagavad Sandarbha, Sri Jiva Goswami states, "O learned sages, the first syllable of the word Bhagavan, Bha, has two meanings. The first one is one who fully maintains, and the second is guardian. The second syllable Ga means guide, leader, or creator. The syllable Van indicates that every being lives in him and that he also lives in every being. In other words, the transcendental sound, Bhagavan, represents infinite knowledge, potency, energy, opulence, strength, and influence, all without a tinge of material inebriety. Means there's no material defects of any sorts. So if we go through that, then we see quite a few meanings that actually also apply to Lord Shiva. We say he has two meanings. The first is fully maintains, and the second is who's a guardian. You know, and then also Ga means guide, leader, and creator. And these features of a maintainer and creator are to be seen in the creation of pastimes. So actually the origin of Lord Shiva is who? Someone knows? Yes, there's one. Sometimes it's said he appears, one form of Shiva appears through the forehead of Lord Brahma. He manifests him. And also some 2 shlokas ago, there was mentioned how Brahma is Swayambhu, the one who has no birth, who was given birth from the lotus flower stemming from Vishnu's navel. And actually similarly Shiva is someone who is not taking birth, or like there's one name meaning he has not experienced any material distresses, so he's practically completely free from any material entanglement. Yes, actually Lord Shiva himself, often we see when you see pictures when he meditates on Lord Shankarshan, which is one of the expansions of Lord Narayan, and Shankarshan is the form that manifested also Lord Shiva, or actually the original form of Shiva is called Shambhu, and this form is described in the Sri Brahma Samhita, when it's described how Mahavishnu, who is actually identical with Shankarshan, is kind of the same form, glances upon material energy, and by his glance he manifests kind of a ring of light, a dim light, and this is the manifestation of Lord Shambhu, the actually prototype, so to speak, of any Shiva forms. So the Shiva within the universe is not necessarily identical with the Shambhu or Sadashiva. There are different categories, as we will hear, of Shiva, and often it would actually require a particular context knowledge. When in some Shastra, Lord Shiva is mentioned in the pastime, that we know, is this now the original form, an expansion, or like we will hear, he can even create Avesha avatars. And also Lord Shiva can do that. It's an interesting feature of him. And that actually in the spiritual realm, we see, when we see this on this poster, on this Goloka chart, we see the material sphere, the Vaikuntha sphere, and we see one planet that is half in the material world and half in the spiritual world. And this is Shiva Loka. He said he's kind of somewhat situated also in this Vairaj area, and he's actually the masculine principle that makes the creation possible. Lord Vishnu himself actually does not directly create, he actually employs Shambhu or Shiva as the masculine principle, Linga, and then there's Yoni, the female principle, Prakriti. And it says that actually when Yoni and Linga unite, then the whole creative process starts to happen. So in this sense, it's actually correct to see Lord Shiva as the creator, and therefore to address him as Bhagavan. And he is also, of course, therefore has the Shakti to maintain things. You know, he's a very empowered being, in this prototype form particularly. So the syllable Van indicates every being lives in him and that he also lives in every being. Okay, this refers particularly to, of course, Lord Krishna as the super soul, but we also hear that Lord Shiva is present in quite a few aspects of the material sphere and creation, is permeating many of our daily life, spheres and areas. In the Bhagavad Gita, we hear that also, like actually through Srila Prabhupada, we came to the understanding that Bhagavan is actually exclusively a term being used for describing the Supreme Personality of Godhead with all the opulences in full. Because in Sanskrit itself, Bhagavan is also simply used to indicate a very powerful person. It doesn't necessarily mean this is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So therefore some interpretations of the Bhagavad Gita also state, yeah, Krishna is only a powerful person. They don't, translate or interpret this word Bhagavan as such, as Shiva Goswami is stating here. And we hear it, I think, that also the word Bhagavan is sometimes applied reply to another personality besides Shiva in Bhagavatam, but I'm not fully sure. So let's look at the glories of Lord Shiva. And there's one great book I can just recommend for those particularly already have studied some Prabhupada's books, the Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam. A further elaboration on the forms of Krishna and their tattva or essential identity and their position in connection to Swayam Bhagavan are described in the Sri Lagu Bhagavatamrita. This is a book by Sri Rupa Goswami, where he is, like Lagu means actually small Bhagavatamrita, whereas from Sanatana Goswami the Brihat Bhagavatamrita is the big Bhagavatamrita, which also shares a lot of insights and information about Vaikuntha, the spiritual worlds. So in this book, he's also explaining the position of Swayam Bhagavan, when Krishna is addressed as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Swayam or Swayam Rupa means the original form which has no predecessor. Means he's actually the beginning and there's nothing that caused him. That's one of the great mysteries in our Vaishnava theology that we sometimes maybe we cannot grasp. We sometimes always must assume, like, okay, where's Krishna coming from? He doesn't have an origin. Shastra says no, he is the Swayam Bhagavan. He doesn't depend on any other form besides himself, but all the other forms that emanate from him depend on him. So that's the unique position of Swayam Bhagavan. So Shiva is a personality that depends, of course, in his existence on Shankarshan, like the Vishnu Narayan form that manifested him. At the same time, he's on a platform of spiritual potency and qualities that he can be rightfully called Bhagavan, since, as we now just discussed, is actually the creator of the material worlds. He's the masculine principle, Lingam. His wife Parvati, or like Durga Devi, she's the Prakriti, material energy, and they make the cosmic creation possible, so to speak. So we find more explanation in the Lagu Bhagavatamrita. This is, by the way, translated and interpreted by Gopi Purandana Prabhu, one of Sri Prabhupada's disciples. He passed away already, but he was a very learned and competent Sanskrit scholar. He translated quite a few of the Goswami's writings, like also the Jiva Goswami's Tattva-sandara. So it's very professionally done, very thorough, very competent. And he also writes here that Lord Sadashiva is also Bhagavan, the Lord of the spiritual sky, full in 6 opulences and expanded form of mundane success. His body is Jyoti Rupa, pure spirit. The revelation that Sadashiva, the Lord of the material creation, expands from Krishna as supporting evidence that Krishna is the original form of the Supreme, just as the detection of a deedlap of an animal is evidence that the animal is a cow. I'm not sure about this term deedlap, maybe it's the kind of pattern of the skin or something. I don't know. At least some marker or indication that you can recognize that's a cow. So here it's also here, and from this purpose we can understand that the term Bhagavan is rightfully applied to Lord Shiva in his original form when he resides rather in the spiritual realm, and then he gradually manifests in forms that act within the material world. The same actually for Brahma. We hear that also Lord Brahma as a demigod has actually 3 bodies, which gives some ranking in which kind of potency or nature these bodies have. One is the 4-headed Brahma that we know within the creation, born from the lotus stem of Lord Shiva. And then there's one form called Hiranyagarbha, that means that actually the universal form, as we hear description, he considers his rightful body. This is his kshetra, actually. He's conscious of the whole universe. And this form can also be perceived by the demigods, they have the eyes. And then there's a form above that, is the Vairaj form, which relates to that actually he's also the Mahatattva even itself. It's also described in the Lagu Bhagavatamrita, and only Vishnu can see him in that form. So it's maybe, let's expand a bit our understanding of this tattvas of Brahma, of Shiva. They are sometimes Jivas, and sometimes actually they are simply expansions of Vishnu. So they can be both. And here it's explained, Rudra has 11 expansions and he also has 8 bodies. He is usually described as having 5 faces, 3 eyes and 10 arms. So quite appearance. As the scriptures relate that the role of Brahma is sometimes assumed by Vishnu and sometimes by an empowered Shiva, so various scriptures relate that the role of Rudra, Shiva, is also assumed in these 2 ways. Rudra as a direct expansion of Lord Vishnu is mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam 1st canto in a verse that describes the Supreme Lord assuming the forms of all the 3 guna avatars. The original Rudra expands himself in many forms in the material world, including as the 11 Rudras. So we will hear the names of these 11. These Rudra indicates someone who's very angry and someone who does a lot of harm. That's also the pastimes. We hear that even Lord Brahma once became very threatened and afraid, because when he saw that actually the offspring of Rudra, all the other Rudras, they were destroying practically the universe, so they were very fearsome, very powerful. And said Lord Shiva appears as Achaikapat, Ahir Pratna, Virupaksha, Raivata, Hara, Bahu Rupa, the best of demigods, Triambaka. This is famous Shiva mantra, the Om Triambakam, is mentioned there. Like, Hindus like to chant that to take shelter of Shiva. Savitra, Jayanta, Pinaki, and Aparajita. This is from the Mahabharata, there these names are mentioned. And he also expands as 8 Shiva Linga incarnations, presiding over 8 elements, and they are worshipped as deities. So here we can see the word Bhagavan being also present everywhere. It's like here he resides over elements, namely the earth, water, fire, air, ether, the sun, the moon, and the offer of solemn sacrifice. So, and there's let's connect to some more detail in that. Srila Prabhupada writes in one purport of the how we can perceive the presence actually of Lord Rudra in our daily life and our daily bodily functions that happen. And in the purport he says, the creation of Rudra between the eyebrows of Brahma as the result of his anger generated from the mode of passion, partly touched by ignorance, is very significant. In the Bhagavad Gita 3.37, the principle of Rudra is described. Krodha, anger, is the product of kama, lust, which is the result of the mode of passion. When lust and hankering are unsatisfied, the element of Krodha appears, which is the formidable enemy of the conditioned soul. This most sinful and inimical passion is represented as Ahankara. And we also know who is the Lord of Ahankara? It's Lord Shiva. And it's his role in connection to the Jivas. He controls them through also the Ahankara. Or the false, egocentric attitude of thinking oneself to be all in all. Such an egocentric attitude on the part of the conditioned soul, who is completely under control of material nature, is described in Bhagavad Gita as foolish. The egocentric attitude is a manifestation of the Rudra principle in the heart, wherein Krodha or anger is generated. This anger develops in the heart and is further manifested through various senses like the eyes, hands, and legs. When a man is angry, he expresses such anger with red-hot eyes and sometimes makes a display of clenching his fist or kicking his legs. This exhibition of the Rudra principle is the proof of Rudra's presence in such places. When a man is angry, he breathes very rapidly, and thus Rudra is represented in the air of life, or in the activities of breathing. When the sky is overcast with dense clouds and roars in anger, and when the wind blows very fiercely, the Rudra principle is manifested. And so also when the sea water is infuriated by the wind, it appears in the gloomy feature of Rudra, which is very fearful to the common man. When fire is ablaze, we can also experience the presence of Rudra, and when there is an inundation over the earth, we can understand that this is also the representation of Rudra. So we have a few inputs here in how we can perceive the presence of Lord Shiva or Lord Rudra within the material creation, also in daily life. Yes. Let's go back to the point like how Shiva can be a form of Vishnu or also a Jiva. And he had said, some scriptural statements indicated Lord Hara is an individual Jiva like Brahma. These are descriptions of partial expansions of Hara, similar to some statements about Anantashesha. So Anantashesha can empower actually individual souls to perform the deeds he does. And we hear here in the purport, Lord Chaitanya taught Sanatana Goswami that Lord Rudra is neither Vishnu nor a finite Jiva, but it is a special intermediate category of his own. But Srila Baladev Vidyabhushana, in his commentary on the previous two verses, which he quoted, used the word Ishvara in referring to Rudra's original appearance in this world, indicating virtual equality with the personality of Godhead. Lord Anantashesha, the bedstead of Mahavishnu, and a direct expansion of Godhead can empower a Jiva to act in his name, so that the Jiva can hold the material planets on his serpent hoods. Lord Rudra similarly empowers Jiva representatives. These are described in many scriptures, beginning with the Rig Veda. There's one quote, whomever I choose for the role, I empower as a fearsome Rudra, Brahma, a sage, or a wise man. So, therefore we must understand, sometimes when we hear about Lord Shiva, we might hear about actually one of his Avesha avatars, sometimes about his more elevated forms, more fully potent Vishnu forms. And to the fearsome aspect, it's an interesting thing. Lord Ananta, his glories are described in the 5th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, as described where he's residing and how his anger is actually the cause of destruction for the material creation. And he is part of it, but he is the one who actually instructs Rudra how to destroy the material universes. So he speaks to him. And then it said that Rudra is so much fearsome, or fierce and fearful, that even he himself, means his forms, are afraid among each other, of each other. One Rudra is afraid of another Rudra. The word Rudra Bhaya is significant in this verse, where the purport is from, because Rudra himself, Lord Shiva, is speaking of fear of Rudra. This indicates that there are many Rudras, 11 Rudras, and the Rudra, Lord Shiva, who was offering this prayer to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is different from the other Rudras, although he is as powerful as they are. The conclusion is that one Rudra is afraid of another Rudra because each and every one of them is engaged in the destruction of this cosmic manifestation. So, but for the devotee, everyone is afraid of Rudra, even Rudra himself. A devotee is never afraid of Rudra because he is always secure, being protected by the lotus feet of the Lord. I find it's an interesting detail to contemplate on that, how Rudra is even afraid of his own destructive capacity. You know. And there are also some Rudras that mention that have not really knowledge of the Supreme Lord, and these are said to be the Avesha avatars. There's one quote where Vishnu speaks, I alone create Prajapati, Brahma and Rudra. Both of them, bewildered by my Maya, fail to know me in truth. So this, of course, does not relate to Sadashiva, or like the Shambhu. So this relates to these, let's call it lesser forms of Lord Shiva. And when Lord Hara is a personal expansion of the Purusha, he's nearly transcendental to material modes. But because of his contact with a mode of ignorance, all in this world perceive him as subject to transformation. And this is also what Daksha did. You know, if you might recall how like Daksha insulted Lord Shiva, he said practically that. You're an ignorant person, you live in crematory places, smear yourself with ashes, appear like a madman, you're very low class, you're not a saintly person. You know, you don't even have respect for your superiors like this. So he was practically looking at him as a tamasic being, you know, someone who's affected by the mode of ignorance. Although he's actually transcendental to it, He has no identification. He is even, this is interesting, if you think of the pastime, he's even the lord of the false ego, the ahankara, which makes Daksha act the way he acts. And he's the Rudra principle within the breath, within the words that Daksha uttered. So actually Shiva is facilitating practically this whole cursing and insulting of Daksha. And he's aware of that. This is practically, I would imagine it as someone who's sitting in a theater and is kind of a director and at the same time witnessing the scenes, you know, how people act and play. And at the same time is detached from it. That's actually the position of Shiva, you know, of the transcendental Shiva. Yeah, the false ego of materialistic identity is controlled by the demigod Rudra, an incarnation of Lord Shiva. So he also Prabhupada uses this term. He says, the deity that manifests or that controls the false ego is Rudra, an incarnation of Lord Shiva. Means Lord Shiva expands into another form that governs the false ego. Yeah, the activities of the false ego are based on the objective of the body and mind. Most persons conducted by the false ego are controlled by Lord Shiva. When one reaches a final version of ignorance, he falsely thinks of himself as the Supreme Lord. That egotistic conviction of the conditioned soul is the last snare of the illusory energy which controls the entire material world. So these are some aspects and glories of Lord Shiva who speaks here, who is addressed as Bhagavan. So we can contemplate on how he's actually, very close to Vishnu. Also the examples given of milk and yogurt and how the transformations are like in a sense same but also different. How Shiva is how Vishnu is the milk and Lord Shiva is the yogurt. And in one sense identically, in identity they're more like the same, although they differ a bit. So he's not in the category of Jiva. So also Daksha did not understand that. He didn't understand the glories of Lord Shiva. Therefore his offense was great. And offense is actually defined, or like an aparat, by lack of respect. And lack of respect means lack of understanding about who is someone or something. What is his quality or like his position in relationship to me, in relationship to anyone else. So also when we speak of Nam aparat, Seva aparat, all these offenses we can do towards Krishna and the Vaishnavas, they usually go back to ignorance, that we are not aware of how we're supposed to approach or respect the deity or the Vaishnava, etc. But a person who's in knowledge, who understands the glories of Krishna and of the Vaishnava, of the Guru, he can avoid aparats, or because he's not in this ignorance. And Lord Daksha, his name indicates that he's very expert. That was the name Daksha means also. He had Tatrati Daksha, Ativalavasya, Mandi Gurusvi, Charanarvinda, and also the Guru is considered Daksha or Daksha because he's very expert in making arrangements. He speaks, Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur speaks of the Guru actually also in the spiritual world, who arranges for the pastimes of Lord Krishna very expertly in assisting all that. So Daksha was actually very capable, and his pride was, had some foundation. He was Prajapati, then he was even promoted to the chief of Prajapatis by Lord Brahma. So we could argue he had some reason to be proud. You know, he was not just out of nothing. Though doesn't mean that his pride was right, but just that he was quite a powerful person. But what happens, now we come to the nature of pride. His pride gave him a sense of superiority to an extent that he could not anymore distinguish where his true superiority ends and inferiority starts. So he saw himself as superior to Lord Shiva based on a material relationship. You know, he didn't recognize the transcendental nature also of Lord Shiva. He just saw, this is now my son-in-law. So I'm the father-in-law, that makes me superior. So, and I'm also the head here of the sacrifice, and later on he became the chief of the Prajapatis. So he was thinking, you owe me respect, and if you don't show it, I get angry. That what happened. So he suddenly became so proud that he cannot anymore properly distinguish between his limitation in terms of powerfulness and qualities, and he falsely considered Shiva to be his inferior. So we can understand this dynamic of pride. This is happening also in the material world. I mean, this also happens practically in higher spheres in the material world. But that pride means usually, for once there is a sense of entitlement. You know, I deserve this, or I'm entitled to this. And at the same time feeling superior. Usually pride means I am better, or like you're lesser, I'm more competent, more qualified, more better looking, more this, more that, more this, more that, you know. So, and the pride is usually something where you distinguish yourself to your advantage from other living entities. Whereas the humble person is rather, or the spiritualist is looking at how are we all same and what is the value of others. He gives value to others. He sees the glories and encourages the character and qualities of others, whereas the proud person tries to diminish that usually. You know, because he has a sense, I want to feel also superior, and sometimes when I'm not really that, I also need to act in a way that we call it condescending, or like making others feel lower in a sense, so that I can feel higher. And so then the pride is often not based on a substance, it's more like an vanity, you know, it's not, it's empty often. Because if I'm truly superior, like if my qualities or my potency makes me that, then I don't need to establish that extra. It kind of is a fact in itself. Like Lord Shiva is superior to anyone else, but he doesn't have a need to let you know by letting you down or something, or making you small. He just is glorious, and at the same time he has no need to puff up, so to say, his self-esteem. Often a proud person has a need to uplift his own self-esteem because it's rather low, though it appears the contrary. Often pride or arrogant people are actually not very self-confident. That's why they need to act proud and arrogant. Whereas often people who seem to be rather humble, or like, you know, they might have a very healthy and strong self-esteem. You know, they may also not be. This is the difference that I would like to highlight. A proud person is prone to feel offended, like Daksha. Daksha got very much offended by the very fact that someone else didn't acknowledge, apparently, his superiority. Everyone else stood up in a sacrifice, just not Lord Shiva. But not out of bad motive, he was just absorbed. And he also felt like that actually by position, Daksha is not my superior. So that because the pride is more or less a neediness for maybe respect or recognition, and the more pride, it's also said like the higher the monkey climbs, he exposes. You know, that means you can see his butt. You know, the more he climbs up a tree. So the more actually a person becomes arrogant pride, the more like he shows actually his own defects. You know, and Lord and Daksha showed how he's actually very prone to anger and low self-esteem in a sense, because he had a need to really devalue Lord Shiva. And we can see a person who has a healthy self-esteem compared to someone who's simply proud and arrogant. The person with healthy self-esteem, he can tolerate critique. You know, a person who is grounded with himself and healthy, so to speak, he can handle that. He can be constructive with critique. He doesn't get agitated immediately and fights back. You know, we can also see, we can understand by our own reaction, the more we respond to some offense or disrespect, or like that might be in fact a disrespect, or like something that I assume to be disrespectful, maybe some person doesn't intend in any way to offend me, that I can handle it, tolerate it, because okay, I'm not depending on the approval or the respect of the other person. Bless you. Whereas people who are like very much on this egocentric platform, they're very sensitive to being criticized or not being acknowledged, not being boosted in their recognition, and so on. So therefore they react very strong with anger usually. So there we can recognize and understand where do I stand myself in terms of how do I handle critique, or how do I handle apparent disrespect or dishonor. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is highlighting this feature of not craving the respect of others. So, but what is needed that we can do so? What is needed that we're going to have a healthy self-esteem? Because this brings the capacity to tolerate disrespect and insult. If I don't feel in myself in a sense valuable, grounded, and worthy, and so on, I will always be shaking, in the face of if I'm being questioned, being devalued by others, And this points to a understanding or like a consciousness of your positive spiritual identity. Now, on a material platform, of course, we can also seek value and say, okay, I'm equipped with that, or I am capable of this, or I'm a person who has a character like this and that gives us value or a sense of, okay, that's fine, I can be satisfied with who I am and what I can do, also for Krishna. There are limitations to it, of course, but even more important is that besides that physical body, which is anyway a temporary manifestation, in the next body might have a different set of qualities, that I'm valuable as a spirit soul in the eyes of Krishna. And that he is always interested in my well-being, and that he equipped me with transcendental qualities that make me capable to please him or to exchange lovingly with him. So that must be actually meditation of the spiritualist, to understand positively his spiritual identity and seek his actually self-esteem from there, rather than from material or like mental or physical features. Though until we arrive there, still we have both. Of course, we need our physical and mental identification to some degree, and how much we are identified with it makes us needy of also, of course, this recognition on the material platform. But the actual core must be the understanding I'm Krishna's eternal child, so to speak. He cares, he wants me to be in relationship with him, and he always has my back, actually. Sometimes I might act stupidly and get away from him and then suffer, but he's always there. And from there get our sense of worthiness. No one that exists is unworthy of existing. Because that means that we say Krishna created something that he doesn't want. It's a mistake. Krishna makes mistakes. He creates beings. Oh, excuse me. There's an important understanding. No one is unnecessarily existing. Sorry, my throat. Speaking of the limitations of the body. Yes, because some people might think, people with low self-esteem also think, I have the mentality, I might not even be worthy to exist, I should maybe even better be gone. People have also suicidal tendencies because of maybe humiliation, low self-esteem, etc. This is important. The Creator does not create anything that should not be. He has intended every one of us to be, and has equipped everyone with some qualities and tasks, a dharma, And from there we can get our sense of self-esteem. in connection to Krishna. He wants us to be something. He has given us some capacity to serve Him. We might have the task to figure out what exactly is it. Might not be completely transparent to us. But that is something we can focus on in our daily thinking and feeling. You know? So Daksha came off on the point of false pride, but pride in itself is actually not completely wrong. Let's contrast it to another personality in the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is Maharaj Parikshit. And it is explained in the first canto that Maharaj Parikshit, when he was conquering also the world, he came to different places and he always heard the glories of his great forefathers, the Pandavas. You know, he was very pleased and glad to hear that, and he also appreciated the bards, you know, the singers who give the praises. You know, Srila Prabhupada remarks say, yeah, at that time it was still honest, but nowadays it's all just lie and cheap when they praise a powerful person. And then it said Maharaj Parikshit was actually felt proud of having such ancestors. So it's interesting, Prabhupada remarks, I've tried to find this particular verse, but I couldn't yesterday, but it's in the first canto in his chapters, that he says it's not an empty pride, you know, like others might have, but this is like rather, he considered an adequate pride, you know, referring to the glories of his devotee ancestors, where he felt like rather privileged or positively, encouraged to be part of that. You know, and so in a sense, one can also have some pride, for example, connected to be part of this movement he started, that like to be practically a disciple in the first place to Srila Prabhupada, to have his teachings, to become a follower. So this can be like some also sense of, more like probably you should go in a direction gratitude, but also there like some sense of confidence that Krishna blessed us with this because he trusts us enough to pick up on that and to develop ourselves. So actually, Mahaprabhu coming, Prabhupada coming, is also a message of Krishna. I trust you that you can pick up on the process and that you can elevate yourself spiritually. And that's the thing that we should have in mind, whereas other religions, or let's say religious representatives, give the message, God is angry with you and he criticizes you and he looks at you very critically. This is Bhagavatam or like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they give a different message. You know, they say God cares about you and He gives you another opportunity to get out of this nonsense, so to speak, material existence. And the proud person who has not this healthy self-esteem, he will always have, he's always prone to humiliation. The prouder we are, the more arrogant we are, the easier we feel humiliated. It's a natural correlation actually, because your sense of superiority and importance and significance and value is so high that always also a little dissonance. Someone might just simply glorify you not, sufficiently enough, might be already an offense, you know. Why do you just, for example, might be a simple thing, person might feel, or someone greets me friendly, respectfully, but this person doesn't bow down and offers to wash my feet. Disrespectful person. Or whatever. There is, of course, social etiquette, and there should be proper reciprocation. Like the Vaishnavas, for example, they are like required when they come, they offer some prayer and respect each other by bowing down, like saying Mancha Kalpadarupascha, by saying appreciating each other. That's the etiquette, so the social norm that is actually good to have. It was not more there to say back then than it is now in many places, but it's a very valuable social etiquette. But I'm pointing to rather the mentality that has this demanding spirit, and then one is easily offended, and that goes nowadays with the term narcissist. You know, it's not a Nazi, it's narcissist. You know, like this, a person who is very much situated in this false ego and indulges in like four anarthas, we could call it. One is being egocentric, being simply very self-centered, always what is about me, selfishness. The other is lack of empathy. This is also what Daksha shows to Sati, because here, like Lord Shiva in this verse is warning her, if you go there, he will not have mercy for you. He will rather mercilessly be angry at you, and you will suffer. So Daksha was only concerned about himself, his pride, his ego, and he even was ready to simply reject his own daughter because of his envy and anger towards Lord Shiva, which is quite a big thing also in these circles. He was a figure like, leader of the Prajapatis, and now out of some anger he rejects his own daughter. Quite a big thing. Even she didn't do anything. The only fault she had was practically being married to Lord Shiva. Then on the high sensitivities, the other thing, like also Daksha obviously was very easily triggered because of his high pride and his high sense of superiority. Therefore he was very vulnerable to insult and disrespect. These are features we call nowadays narcissism. That's many people manifest that in different degrees. It's a problem, and because on the core there's no healthy self-esteem. There's always compensation, and there's like this pathological way of dealing with it. So therefore, in the spiritual life, it's so crucial to develop the sense of positive identity in relationship to Krishna, and as I mentioned before, to get our sense of self-worth and self-esteem from there. And I would like to end with shortly narrating the story of the Keshi demon, since the pride as an anartha is also given a form in the Krishna Lila, and this is a great powerful horse, black horse called Keshi. The horse is a very impulsive being, a very passionate being, and hard to tame. And similarly, if anger is coming up, like it might simply rule you, like any other emotion can, but anger is particularly, like when a horse kicks, it smashes practically everything. You see sometimes in YouTube I saw sometimes these clips when some people try to mark the horse with this fire, how it's called, branding something. And then he stood a bit in a not so good position, and the horse kicked, and he just in a break of a second he just flew out of the picture. And he was practically that, the horse crushed his chest like completely just with one kick. So anger is also, like pride is a very powerful thing. It just destroys, just like that. Daksha could reject his own daughter, like cut all ties with this beloved daughter. And this is a strong tie actually, having a child. So, and the Keshi demon was there as a powerful horse terrorizing the inhabitants of Vrindavan. And Krishna was at that time maybe also 10 years, 12 years or something. So when he faced the demon, and Keshi demon sent by Kamsa went to destroy Krishna, and to his surprise, first Krishna took the Keshi demon by the leg and whirled him around and threw him like 100 miles away, which is quite a distance. And the Keshi demon lost consciousness, stood there for a while, and then woke up and went back. He was not surprised that just some small boy threw him 100 miles away, but he just shook off his whatever surprise and went back. And ultimately Krishna, what he did is when the Keshi demon rushed again, he with one fist strike, he broke all his teeth out, and like his arm was stuck into the Keshi demon's throat. So what Krishna did is, he let his arm grow. He expanded a bit. And it said usually the gopis, they experience Krishna's skin and arm is very pleasantly cool, like the Vrindavan moon. And for the Keshi demon, his arm was like hot iron stuck in his throat. And gradually, he left his body painfully. So it also said Krishna kills, of course, our anarthas if engaged in the process, because also Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is explaining Anartha nivritti, in a sense, happens if one goes properly through the stages of devotional service, starting with Shraddha and Sadhusanga, etc. And And there is particularly also, the idea is that a spiritual master is also correcting, breaking one's pride by, also giving us a proper humiliation, not like degrading, but also cracking our false ego. So then gives us a transcendental knowledge. The idea is, don't base your self-esteem on your body. Base your self-esteem about the nature of the soul. That when in its relationship to Krishna, that's practically the message. Because if you base it on the body, you will just suffer. Because then you see duality, you forget how we all as spiritual souls are of equal nature, and there's no need to feel inferior, superior. But then we forget that, and we see the different features of the body as inferior and superior, and get lost in there, and then we create enemies and friends. Although we could just be relating to each other in a very respectful, peaceful way as spirit souls, differently dressed. Some with more pigmentation, others with less. Alright, thank you very much. Are there any comments, questions, remarks?
Hi, Bob. Thank you for the class. I have a question about this low self-esteem. Sometimes if you have this low self-esteem and you want to be humble, then this humility is not really real, because you're anyway pushing yourself down, and then you say maybe, oh no, I'm not a good singer, so this is not real humility. So, but even if you want to have a healthy self-esteem, then you have to say yourself, yeah, I'm a good singer, but then this is also not humble. And if you want to, in spiritual life we say everything is coming from Krishna, we push that talent or whatever we have, we give it away, like this mercy of Krishna. So it sounds like again I can do nothing, like again you're pushing yourself down. So how to balance this self-esteem, healthy self-esteem and humility?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Let's look at what it means to be humble. I think there's the key. Shiva Prabhupada says different things on the definition of humility. Sometimes he says about like pridelessness, humility is that you don't think yourself to be the Lord of the world, and then other than not to overestimate your capacities and qualities. But it's not the same as denying your capacities and qualities, because that would also deny that Krishna equipped you with certain talents and abilities. The important feature is that one doesn't claim credit for whatever you got as a talent or like a quality, but you say, okay, Krishna blessed me with this, and I'm supposed to use it in the service. Not use it for practically your own glorification. Oh, I'm a great singer, so see me as a great singer, right? I'm the star, go for this admiration and fame. But rather see, okay, obviously Krishna gave me something, okay, let me use it in the service, because that's what it is meant for. He gave it to me, so to give an opportunity to please him with that. That's his intention. He created each jiva with particular qualities, also of the body, and it is meant for his enjoyment, and then actually one also will feel valuable. Because if you can be part of something very great, also in the mature world it's like this, if you join an institution or like be in some particular position, you automatically get a boost in your self-esteem, because I'm part of something wonderful or great. So what would it be then to be part of the association of the greatest being ever, Krishna, and be in his service? So from there actually comes then also a sense of value, because, I'm a servant of this most great personality, Krishna. But it must mean, okay, I acknowledge the qualities and talents I have, say I have them. Simply affirmative, I have them. It doesn't mean automatically you're puffed up. That simply means to acknowledge what you got, But then say, Krishna gave it to me to serve him. Let me be in a service mood. Is that answering the question?
Can I just add something on that? Because we talked a lot about humility statement of Prabhupada that once he defined humility as being bold for Krishna. And I very much like this because it gives emphasis to the other part of humility. It's not just very low and everything, but also to do something and engage yourself in Krishna service and step over your limitation and this mental barriers of thinking, I cannot sing, I cannot do this and that. So I very much like this also. Then I have a question regarding Bhagavan, this term, and in general, sometimes it's very baffling that words mean so many things in Sanskrit and they get used like this also. For example, also Narada Muni is addressed as Bhagavan, and so many persons. So how do you deal with this? And like, then it seems that it's so relative. As for example, Atma, it can mean body and this and that.
Or also Ishvara.
Ishvara, yeah. So how do you deal with that, like practical? Not to think that this is all relative and anybody can say practically everything.
Yeah, it's important to have simply faith in Guru. And just Srila Prabhupada gives us a very clear emphasis. Sometimes by the rules of language, like Sanskrit for example, you might feel, that's not really working out, or like it seems contradictory, or how come Srila Prabhupada asserts now this means this and that? Well, yeah, he has a different vision, and here we can just simply have trust in the expertise and transcendental knowledge or like realization of the pure devotee who asserts, look at it like this. Sometimes also we see this by Shiva Goswami. Another, when they comment, they say, usually, I don't have a concrete example, but I just remember reading Shiva Goswami's commentaries, they say, usually the word is meant like this and this and that, but here it means this. So, and they assert it, and we say, okay, but what can I, anyway, what means do I have to prove or disprove it? So, but rather have faith, like, okay, this is Srila Prabhupada's teaching, this is how he Srila Jiva Goswami has established all as called Krishna Sandarbha, dealing with this one verse, Etacham Sakala Pumsa, Krishna's tu Bhagavan Svayam, this whole feature of Bhagavan and Svayam, to establish, okay, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of God, but by each word he goes through. Simply starting with tu, Krishna's tu Bhagavan Svayam, meaning translated but. This and this and this, then goes, but Krishna is. And going on all the grammar and all everything. So, I think we should rely simply on our teachings that we got from Srila Prabhupada and have faith, even if we sometimes cannot reconcile it so much intellectually or language-wise. And some might challenge it based on Sanskrit, or saying, okay, what can I say? This is what I trust that my Guru has given me proper knowledge, and I follow that. What to do? There will always be opinions and ways to look differently at stuff.
Thank you for the class. Very relevant. I was thinking when this point of Shiva was brought up, it was just so overwhelming. And I was thinking, to understand who is Shiva, there's so many aspects. And I was thinking how we have experienced only, there's me, there's another people, there's the birds, and there's there's some animals. That's about it. But then there's so many more different kind of beings with the different features. So it's a little bit hard to comprehend and to understand. And regarding I was thinking about the humility. And also this question what Prabhu Lucas was bringing up, that and you explained that there's so many aspects, so many different kind of rules, and what is our actual capacity to understand? Another day I was walking in a forest and there were trees flying all around me in the form of seeds. There's thousands of trees, actually. But, we're not aware. There's so many things. Our capacity is small. But on this humility, I think there's a Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. He explains how, or maybe he doesn't explain, but this was brought out that we submit, we humbly submit to the will of the Lord and His devotees. We submit there, but we don't submit to non-devotees' will, and that maybe can help to a little bit different. That I'm humble and I'm humble to everyone, and I'll just do whatever everyone else. No, we are very firm where we submit ourselves and where we don't submit ourselves. We respect everyone, but we're very firm and knowing where we serve, where we dedicate our life.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's very relevant to additional distinction. Do we have online question?
Maybe you have your phone.
I have one more question.
Yeah.
So sometimes,
Switch it on.
I heard sometimes also devotees pray to Shiva to overcome the false ego or whatever. But you told also Krishna breaks it also. So why some people go to Shiva? Maybe he's more easy to please, or how?
Well, I mean, that's also in a sense one must ask the people where is their faith. Yes, one name of Shiva is Ashutosha, and he is easily pleased, contrast to Rudra, who gets greatly angry. Really. Well, for Vaishnava SPC, Lord Shiva is very close to Vishnu in Tattva, and also he is considered the greatest Vaishnava. So I think there's no mistake to ask for blessing to help get relief of the false ego. If your conscience is Shiva is the greatest Vaishnava, it's like asking your guru for his blessings. Yeah, I think I would appreciate the point that someone has the desire to get free of the false ego. That's very valuable. That you acknowledge, oh, there's something I should hopefully or can get rid of. So no one has an access to the.
Krishna Prasad will check, there are no questions.
Okay. Good. Alright, then I would say we end here. Grant us Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Prabhupada ki jai.
Madhava.